Hello, my darlings. Today we're going to go over the land of the dead, and we're going to do this for a couple reasons. First of all, Ulysses is going to visit this place, but also because this gives you some perspective on ancient Greece mythology and why sometimes they do what they do. You might have noticed that Homer many times talks after an adventure about how they went to an island and mourned their dead. That's a very important part of Greek culture at that point, because if they didn't do that, if Homer hadn't mentioned they had done that, the ghost of these people who had died would haunt them forever. So Homer is kind of explaining, like, yes, even though they died, we still honored them. Okay, so this is basically going to create a map of the land of the dead. And the very first thing you should be aware of is that there's something called the Lethe River. The Lethe River is, and different versions explain it in different ways. Some people drink it, some people touch it, some people cross it, and you forget who you are. You forget your past. So it becomes the river of forgetfulness. After that, we get to the place where Hermes brings the souls. When you die, Hermes is a type of messenger god, and one of his jobs is to take the souls of the dead and bring them to the land of the dead. So that's one of his jobs. It keeps him very busy, and he brings them here. After that is the river Styx. And the river Styx is an important river because you have to cross it to get to the land of the dead, the final resting place. The problem is you can't just cross it. You can't just float over, even though you're a ghost, even though you're a soul. You have to be ferried across. This is Charon, the ferryman, and he will row souls across, but you have to pay him. And there is a physiological reason for this, but also a mythological one. So the mythological one is that he is very greedy and he won't do this for free. So you have to have 2 coins to pay him. The physiological reason is that when you die, movies kind of portray this death as like you're sleeping, your eyes are closed, your mouth is shut, you're resting peacefully. But once rigor mortis hits, your body, all of your muscles contract and your eyes end up going wide open. So does your mouth. So your body ends up looking like this. The problem, and as you can imagine, that's very scary, looking at someone you love looking like they're horrified. And so to make looking at a dead one easier, they would put coins on the eyes so that you couldn't see the eyes, so that it would keep the eyelids shut. Or some people put coins on the mouth under the tongue so that they wouldn't get lost as they wrapped the person. So those are kind of the reasons why the coins existed. Long story short, in order to have your soul get across, you had to be brought by Charon the ferryman. After that, there is the gate to the Underworld, and it is guarded by Cerberus, a 3-headed dog. Now, Cerberus shows up in culture everywhere. Harry Potter, the Sorcerer's Stone, he is very much connected with death and living, and a 3-headed dog guards it there underneath the Hogwarts castle. Long story short there, he will eat people who are alive, and there are always heroes who are alive trying to sneak into the land of the underworld and bite people, or like steal stuff, take stuff, do things they shouldn't. So Cerberus keeps the living out, he eats them and lets the dead through. After that, once you're inside, once your soul is in, you hit the 3 judges, and they decide your future path. So it can go one of 3 ways. And if you are a super awesome person, you've done something that really was helpful and amazing to the gods, you had the option of going to Elysian Fields. And this is a very Valhalla type place. Everyone's happy. It's beautiful. You also have the option, instead of going here, to be reincarnated, and you wouldn't remember who you were, but you get to be alive again. So these are like the superheroes. Most people didn't make it there. If you were a super bad person, you dishonored the gods in a major way. you would be punished. And two of the major people punished are Sisyphus and Tantalus. Their stories are quite amazing. Sisyphus's is pretty funny. Tantalus's is horrifying. But the two tortures that have been developed for these two people is that Sisyphus has to push a rock up a mountain. And if he ever gets it across, then he can become alive again. But every time he gets to the end, it teeters and then it rolls back down. And because he would get to be alive again, he tries it again every day, and that kind of keeps him occupied. Tantalus is in a small pond up to his neck in water and food just out of reach. He is starving, he is super thirsty, but every time he goes to drink that water, the water level sinks to just below his mouth. Same thing if he tries to cup his hands, it's always right below level. Same thing with this fruit. It's like hanging right in his face, like constantly there, just bobbing. But every time he goes to reach it, it's out of reach. So he is surrounded by food, he is surrounded by water, and yet he is dying of thirst and dying of hunger. So that's how he has been tortured. Nearby is going to be the palace of Hades, who is the god of the dead, and his wife Persephone. And we will talk about those people later. So they kind of hang out here. Hades is very jealous of his kingdom, and he makes sure that he never loses anything and that people don't take stuff. So he features in a lot of stories trying to protect his kingdom. And then finally, we have the fields of Asphodel, and that's where most people go. It's not a bad place. It's not a happy place. You kind of just float like flotsam through the world. You might pass your mom or your family or your husband or your whatever and never even know it's them. You kind of just float and exist. Nearby to this is kind of a back entrance with the ocean. Move up here. All right. And this is how Odysseus is able to get there and avoid all of these things. So you can sail to the underworld and kind of come through, another way, a hidden entrance. Odysseus goes there because he wants to talk to some ghosts, specifically Tiresias, who is a fortune teller. And he brings a sacrifice. So he brings a goat. If you are one of these floating souls, if you drink blood, then you are able to experience life again for just a second. You can feel the wind on your face. You can remember your past. And so Odysseus needs this to happen to Tiresias in particular so he can find out how to get home. So he brings a sacrifice to call the ghost to him, first of all, and then allow Tiresias to tell his future in return for the blood. So as you read the Odyssey and Ulysses, as you read the Land of the Dead specifically, keep this in mind that these are the things he's referring to, but also how terrifying death was for the Greeks, why it was so important to bury someone, because if you didn't get buried, you didn't have your coins, you could haunt the people forever. So just keep these ideas in mind. Please let me know if you have any questions. Happy reading.